Let's talk about tariffs, a tax on imported goods meant to make foreign products pricier and boost domestic sales. In 2018, President Trump slapped a 10% tariff on Canadian aluminum, claiming it would protect American jobs and industries. The logic tax Canadian aluminum, make U.S. smelters more competitive, and revive American manufacturing. But global trade isn't a simple one-on-one fight. It's a tangled web. The administration expected American producers to win and Canadians to lose. But Canada, especially Quebec, wasn't about to let its industry collapse. This set the stage for an unexpected economic showdown, one that would defy Washington's expectations. The U.S. is Canada's biggest aluminum customer, importing vast quantities every year to fuel its massive manufacturing sector. From car parts to soda cans, American industries rely heavily on Canadian aluminum, making the trade relationship vital for both countries' economies. By adding a 10% tariff, the Trump administration hoped American companies would ditch Canadian suppliers for domestic ones. The idea was simple: make Canadian aluminum more expensive, so U.S. businesses would buy American instead. The plan was ambitious. U.S. smelters would ramp up production, hire more workers, and even revive shuttered plants that had closed due to foreign competition. This would mean more jobs, more investment, and a stronger domestic industry. Meanwhile, Canadian producers, facing higher costs and shrinking demand, would be forced to either slash their prices to stay competitive or risk losing valuable sales to the U.S. market. The ultimate goal? To pressure Canada into renegotiating trade terms, giving the U.S. a better deal and more leverage in future agreements. But there was a catch. Canadian aluminum is not only high purity, but it's also produced using clean hydroelectric power, making it more environmentally friendly. In contrast, most U.S. producers focus on recycled aluminum, which isn't always suitable for every application. For many American manufacturers, there simply wasn't a domestic alternative that matched the quality or quantity of Canadian aluminum. The supply chain was more dependent on Canada than policymakers realized. The administration's strategy overlooked this crucial difference, underestimating how deeply integrated the two countries' industries had become over decades of cooperation. The result? The policy's foundation was shakier than it seemed, with unintended consequences looming on the horizon and uncertainty spreading through both economies. Canada, instead of backing down, was about to turn this apparent weakness into a surprising advantage, using its unique strengths to adapt and respond. The stage was set for a clever countermove, one that would challenge the assumptions behind the tariffs and reshape the trade battle in unexpected ways. Quebec's aluminum producers didn't panic, they pivoted. Instead of fighting for the U.S. market, they targeted Europe, where buyers wanted high-quality, traceable aluminum. Quebec flooded the London Metal Exchange with their premium product, pushing out lower-quality Russian metal. European buyers, eager for clean Canadian aluminum, snapped it up. This move kept Canadian smelters running and workers employed. It also reshaped global aluminum flows, making Canada a preferred supplier in Europe. The Quebec flood wasn't just survival. It was a strategic win. While Washington focused on tariffs, Canada rewired the global market. The U.S. punch missed, and Canada landed a counterblow. Canada's pivot to Europe had an ironic twist for American businesses. U.S. companies still needed high-purity Canadian aluminum, but now had to buy it from Europe, paying extra shipping and tariffs. Aluminum smelted in Quebec took a costly transatlantic detour before reaching American factories. The result, higher costs and logistical headaches for U.S. manufacturers. The tariff, meant to help, ended up hurting American companies instead. Meanwhile, Canada built strong new trade ties with Europe, reducing its reliance on the U.S. The Trump administration's attempt to isolate Canada only pushed it into a stronger partnership with Europe. Global trade routes were reshaped, and the U.S. lost leverage. In Quebec, the aluminum industry thrived, benefiting from a unique set of circumstances that set it apart from its competitors. The region's access to cheap hydroelectric power and a skilled workforce gave it a significant edge. There were no layoffs, no plant closures, and new contracts in Europe made the industry even more resilient. Quebec's aluminum producers found new markets and opportunities, strengthening their position on the global stage. For American workers, however, the story was very different. Many faced uncertainty and anxiety as the effects of the tariffs rippled through their communities. While a few jobs were saved in U.S. smelters, these gains were limited and did not offset the broader impact. In fact, far more jobs were put at risk in industries that rely on aluminum as a key material, such as auto parts, beverage cans, and construction. These sectors employ hundreds of thousands of Americans, and rising costs threatened their livelihoods. Higher material costs forced companies to make tough choices, cut profits, raise prices for consumers, or lay off workers to stay afloat. The policy may have helped a handful of smelters, but it hurt many more workers and families across the country. The number of U.S. aluminum producers is tiny compared to the vast workforce in manufacturing that depends on affordable aluminum. The tariff was meant to help American workers and revive domestic industry, but in reality, it mostly made their jobs less secure, increasing uncertainty for thousands. It's a classic case of unintended consequences, where a policy designed to protect ends up causing more harm than good. Imagine you decide to tax your neighbor's bread, thinking it will encourage your own family to bake more and keep business local. The idea seems simple. Make imported bread more expensive, and your family's bread will become the go-to choice for everyone in the neighborhood. But there's a catch. Your family only bakes rye, and what you really crave is your neighbor's sourdough. No matter how much rye you bake, it just doesn't satisfy the same need. So, your neighbor, facing the new tax, starts selling their sourdough to Europe instead. But demand at home doesn't disappear. You end up buying that same sourdough back, only now it's traveled farther and costs even more because of the extra journey and middlemen. This isn't just a story about bread, it's exactly what happened with aluminum. The US government put up a tariff, hoping to boost domestic production, but the global market quickly found a backdoor. Canada, a major aluminum producer, simply rerouted its exports. American companies still needed the metal, so they paid more to get the same product, just through a more complicated route. Trade isn't a straightforward, one-way street. It's a complex, ever-shifting system that adapts and finds new paths around obstacles, no matter how high the barriers are built. In this scenario, the tariff acted like a dam, trying to block the flow. Europe became the new riverbed, and the resulting higher costs were like a flood spilling over into America's backyard, affecting everyone from manufacturers to consumers. It's a powerful lesson in the law of unintended consequences. When you try to control a complex system, it often pushes back in ways you never expected. The aluminum saga shows that trade wars are never simple, and the outcomes are rarely predictable. Tariffs rarely work as intended in a global economy, where everything is deeply interconnected. Made in America is more complicated than it sounds. Supply chains are global, and policies can easily backfire. Canada's smart pivot proved that markets adapt and innovate under pressure, finding new ways to thrive. The tariffs meant to punish Canada ended up hurting US businesses and pushing Canada closer to Europe for new partnerships. In a connected world, trying to bully the market is a losing game for everyone involved. The market always finds a way to outsmart you, no matter how hard you try.